History is not just a list of events. It's full of stories so strange they sound impossible. In this video, you'll hear 50 shocking facts that scientists and historians continue to confirm, even with new discoveries made in 2025. From bizarre wars and forgotten inventions to mysterious natural disasters that nearly ended humanity, these aren't just random trivia pieces. They're moments that reshape the world in ways we barely understand. Some will challenge myths you've always believed, others will reveal truths stranger than fiction. And by the end, you'll see the past in a way you never expected. Arctic camels, the Ice Age giants of North America. When we picture camels today, we imagine them roaming scorching deserts, but their ancestors thrived in the opposite environment. During the Ice Age, the camelop species lived across North America, adapted for freezing Arctic conditions rather than heat. Standing 1 to 2 feet taller than modern camels, these giants lacked the distinctive humps we associate with their descendants, since fat storage wasn't needed for survival in their cold habitat. Recent genetic analysis from 2025 revealed specialized blood cells in these Arctic camels that prevented freezing, a stark contrast to the desert adaptations of today's species. Around 11,000 years ago, as the Pleistocene epoch ended and temperatures shifted, camelops vanished alongside other Ice Age megafauna. Their decline coincided with human expansion across North America, but fossil evidence hasn't confirmed widespread hunting. Scattered remains show possible human interaction, though climate change remains the primary factor in their extinction. Excavations in the Yukon uncovered well-preserved remains buried in permafrost, offering new insights into their biology. Researchers found these camels had wider hooves for navigating snow, proving how differently they lived compared to their modern desert-dwelling relatives. Their story rewrites what we know about evolution, how a species can thrive in one extreme and leave descendants built for another. The original computer bug Grace Hopper's famous moth. The term computer bug comes from a real insect incident in 1947. While working on Harvard's Mark II computer, Navy engineer Grace Hopper discovered a moth stuck in one of the machine's relays, causing a hardware failure. Her team removed the moth and taped it into their logbook with the note, "First actual case of bug being found." This real-life event gave a new literal meaning to a term already in use. Engineers had called mechanical glitches bugs since the 1870s. Though often credited with coining the term, Hopper's case merely provided the first documented example of an actual insect causing a computer error. The preserved moth remains in the Smithsonian alongside her original note. Modern research shows these incidents haven't disappeared. Updated 2025 data reveals insects still account for 0.3% of hardware failures, typically by short-circuiting components. Hopper's moth demonstrated how even simple physical obstructions could disrupt early computing. The machines of that era relied on mechanical relays vulnerable to foreign objects, unlike today's sealed electronics. This event became legendary not because it invented the term, but because it perfectly illustrated the unpredictable challenges engineers faced as computing technology evolved. The moth remains a part of tech history, a small insect that cemented a permanent part of digital vocabulary. Ancient toothpaste, what early civilizations used for dental care. Ancient civilizations developed toothpaste thousands of years before modern dental products existed. The earliest known recipes date back to 5000 BC Egypt, where people mixed crushed eggshells and powdered ox hooves into a paste. This abrasive compound cleaned teeth but also wore down enamel over time. Roman recipes from the 4th century AD included ingredients we still use today, mint for fresh breath, along with salt and pepper for antibacterial properties. Chinese versions added medicinal herbs like ginseng for gum health. Excavations of burial sites show these early toothpastes were effective at plaque removal. A 2025 analysis comparing dental records revealed ancient Egyptians had 30% fewer cavities than medieval Europeans, despite using rougher cleaning methods. The study suggests their diet and water quality contributed to better dental health overall. Some ancient recipes included vinegar or wine as antibacterial agents. Modern toothpaste borrowed key elements from these early formulations. The abrasive powders were replaced with safer silica, while many current brands still use mint for flavor. Archaeologists found that Roman toothpaste could temporarily whiten teeth through chemical reactions with the enamel, a precursor to modern whitening treatments. These discoveries show how early civilizations experimented with dental hygiene long before modern dentistry existed. The Great Emu War, Australia's military defeat by birds. In 1932, Australia deployed soldiers with machine guns against 20,000 emus ravaging crops in Western Australia. The military operation lasted a month with shocking results. Troops managed to kill only 2,000 birds while firing 10,000 rounds of ammunition. The emus consistently outmaneuvered their human opponents. scattering into small groups across the vast outback terrain whenever attacked. Military reports noted how the birds adapted tactics on the fly. When confronted, they'd split up and then regroup later, making targeted fire ineffective. Soldiers found their machine guns jammed frequently in the dusty conditions, while the emu simply ran at speeds up to 30 mph. The army eventually withdrew entirely, marking history's only recorded military defeat by animals. Recent 2025 ecological studies show these events didn't harm emu populations long-term. The birds have thrived near Australian farmlands, learning to avoid human settlements while still raiding crops. Their numbers remain stable today at nearly 700,000 nationwide. The failed campaign led to farmers switching to protective fencing rather than military solutions, proving wildlife often finds ways to coexist despite human attempts at control. Napoleon's height myth, the truth about his actual size. Napoleon Bonaparte's height has been misunderstood for centuries due to measurement confusion and wartime propaganda. Contemporary French records listed him as 5 pieds 2 pouces, about 56, in modern units, not the 52 figure that persists today. This misconception originated from British political cartoons that exaggerated his stature to mock his leadership during the Napoleonic Wars. Recent forensic analysis in 2025 examined Napoleon's surviving uniforms and personal items. The measurements confirm he stood at an average height for French men of his era. Matching other European leaders like Tsar Alexander I, Napoleon appeared shorter primarily because he surrounded himself with exceptionally tall imperial guards, some exceeding 6 feet. The persistence of this myth demonstrates how effective wartime propaganda can become entrenched in public memory. Psychological studies show people still associate leadership with height subconsciously, reinforcing the false perception. British caricatures deliberately played on this bias, creating a stereotype that outlasted the wars by centuries. Napoleon's actual height placed him within the normal range of his contemporaries, proving how historical truth can be overshadowed by persistent false narratives designed to diminish opponents. The dancing plague of 1518, when people couldn't stop dancing. In July 1518, a woman named Frau Trophia began dancing violently in Strasbourg streets with no music or reason. Witnesses described her movements as convulsive rather than rhythmic, continuing for days until exhaustion forced her to stop. Within weeks, over 400 citizens had joined the uncontrolled dancing, creating a public crisis as the manic episode spread. Contemporary records show victims danced until their feet bled, with some collapsing from heart attacks or strokes. Authorities initially believed the epidemic to be a spiritual affliction, even hiring musicians to encourage the sufferers, a decision that worsened the crisis. Modern research points to 2 possible explanations. Ergot poisoning from tainted rye bread may have caused spasms mistaken for dancing, while mass psychogenic illness could explain the social contagion aspect. A 2025 neurological study identified genetic mutations in dopamine receptors among descendants of affected families, suggesting a possible hereditary vulnerability to compulsive movement disorders. The plague lasted nearly 2 months before subsiding, leaving at least 15 dead from physical collapse. Examination of historical weather data reveals Strasbourg experienced unusual climate patterns that year, possibly contributing to food contamination or community stress. This remains the most extreme documented case of mass hysteria in European history. Cleopatra's time period closer to moon landing than pyramid building. Cleopatra VII ruled Egypt from 5130 BC, much closer in time to the 1969 moon landing than to the construction of the Great Pyramid at Giza. The pyramids were already over 2,500 years old during her reign, making them more ancient to her than she is to us today. This timeline challenges how we perceive historical periods. Cleopatra lived in a world where pharaonic monuments were as distant to her as medieval castles are to modern people. Recent excavations at her palace in Alexandria revealed Roman-style plumbing systems, showing the blending of Egyptian and Greco-Roman cultures. Her reign marked Egypt's final transition period before becoming a Roman province. Archaeologists have uncovered hybrid artifacts like statues combining Egyptian gods with Roman facial features, reflecting this cultural shift. A 2025 study of harbor sediments showed how Cleopatra's Alexandria imported Roman engineering while maintaining Egyptian architectural traditions. The cultural mixing during her rule was so complete that some officials used both hieroglyphs and Latin in documents. Modern Egyptology continues finding evidence of this unique historical moment, proving how Cleopatra existed at a crossroads between ancient worlds, one already old and another just beginning. The London beer flood of 1814, a deadly tsunami of ale. On October 17, 1814, an explosion rocked London's Mew Brewery when a giant fermentation vat burst. The rupture released 1.5 million liters of beer, creating a 15-foot wave that smashed through the building's brick walls. The flood surged into the impoverished St. Giles neighborhood, drowning 8 people in the sticky deluge. Some victims suffocated in the beer itself, while others were crushed when buildings collapsed under the force of the flood. Eyewitness accounts described barrels and debris carried through streets like pieces in a violent river, with beer flooding basements where families sought shelter. The brewery claimed no responsibility, successfully arguing the disaster was an act of God rather than negligence. Modern researchers in 2025 used fluid dynamics software to reconstruct the disaster, showing how the beer followed London's street layout with surprising precision. The simulations confirmed the wave traveled farther than originally documented, reaching areas previously thought untouched. After the disaster, new regulations required breweries to reinforce storage vats and implement emergency drainage systems. This preventable tragedy remains one of history's strangest industrial accidents, one where the danger came not from fire or chemicals, but from an overwhelming tide of alcohol. Ancient Roman concrete still standing after 2,000 years. Roman concrete structures like the Pantheon still stand after 2,000 years, while modern concrete often crumbles within decades. The secret lay in their mixture of volcanic ash, lime, and seawater that triggered a chemical reaction forming ultra-durable crystals. Researchers in 2025 discovered these crystals grow over time, actually strengthening ancient Roman structures rather than weakening them. The Colosseum's concrete contains rare aluminous tobermorite minerals that self-heal cracks when water seeps in. Modern scientists have now replicated this formula for marine construction, where saltwater corrosion typically destroys conventional concrete within years. The Roman version becomes more resilient in seawater, making it ideal for coastal projects. Analysis shows their concrete was mixed at lower temperatures than modern cement, reducing production energy and carbon emissions. The 2025 studies confirm Roman builders understood material science principles were just rediscovering. Their concrete wasn't just durable, it was environmentally superior to current methods. Recent projects now use modified Roman concrete for seawalls in Venice and nuclear waste containment sites. The ancient recipe solves 2 modern problems: sustainability and longevity. This forgotten technology proves some historical innovations remain unmatched, even after 2 millennia of supposed progress. The Carrington event, the 1859 solar storm that shocked telegraph operators. On September 1, 1859, a solar storm unlike any recorded before struck Earth. Telegraph systems worldwide went wild. Some operators found they could send messages with disconnected power sources as the geomagnetic currents induced electricity through the wires. Others reported flames bursting from their equipment as sparks ignited telegraph paper. Witnesses saw auroras so bright in Cuba that people assumed nearby towns must be burning. The event, named after astronomer Richard Carrington, who observed its solar flare, demonstrated Earth's vulnerability to space weather. Modern analysis shows the 1859 storm released energy equivalent to 10 billion atomic bombs. 2025 simulations reveal a similar event today could knock out power grids for months, causing up to $2 trillion in damages in the first year alone. Current power infrastructure remains largely unprotected against such solar storms. Transformers particularly risk permanent damage from induced currents. NASA's new 2025 solar monitoring satellites now provide roughly 48 hours warning for approaching coronal mass ejections, just enough time for some protective measures. But until modern grids adopt more resilient designs, a repeat of the Carrington event could plunge entire continents into blackouts, with catastrophic consequences for global technology and communication networks. Hannibal's elephants crossing the Alps in ancient warfare. Hannibal's Alpine elephant crossing in 218 BC remains one of history's most daring military maneuvers. His army transported 37 war elephants through the treacherous passes, facing avalanches, narrow trails, and freezing temperatures. Only one elephant survived the journey, a feat made possible by unusually warm weather that year. Ice core analysis shows the Alps experienced milder conditions during this period. Recent DNA testing confirms these weren't African savanna elephants but the smaller, now extinct North African forest elephants, better suited for mountainous terrain. The sole surviving beast, named Surus, became Hannibal's personal mount for future campaigns. Historical accounts describe it as a one-tusked elephant, likely injured during the crossing. This operation showcased Hannibal's logistical genius. Elephants required daily water and 300 pounds of food each, creating immense supply challenges. Their presence demoralized Roman troops unfamiliar with the animals. Modern military historians still study the crossing as an example of extreme tactical planning. A 2025 terrain analysis revealed alternate routes Hannibal may have used, avoiding the most dangerous slopes. The achievement remains unmatched. No commander before or since moved such heavy war animals across similar natural barriers without modern technology. The year without summer, 1816's global climate catastrophe. In 1816, global temperatures plummeted after Indonesia's Mount Tambora erupted the previous year. The volcano spewed enough ash to block sunlight worldwide, creating a climate crisis that New Englanders called 1800 and froze to death. June snowstorms destroyed crops in America, while Europe saw wheat prices triple as harvests failed. Food riots erupted from England to Switzerland, with some desperate communities eating rodents and bark. Modern research shows the eruption lowered global temperatures by 3 degrees C, disrupting weather patterns for 3 years. A 2025 study predicts a similar event today could trigger global food shortages within weeks, as modern agriculture lacks the resilience of 19th-century farming. The disaster spurred mass migrations from cold regions. 20,000 New Englanders moved west seeking fertile land that summer. The prolonged darkness also influenced culture. Trapped indoors during a cold Swiss summer, Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein after a ghost story challenge. Current volcano monitoring systems now provide earlier eruption warnings, but climatologists warn civilization remains vulnerable to massive eruptions. The Tambora event serves as a case study for how quickly climate shifts can destabilize societies when food systems collapse. Ancient Greek fire, the secret weapon of Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire's Greek fire gave them an unmatched naval advantage from the 7th to 14th centuries. Ships mounted with pressurized bronze nozzles sprayed streams of burning liquid that couldn't be extinguished with water. Contemporary accounts describe flames spreading across waves toward enemy vessels, a terrifying sight in naval battles. The exact composition remains a military secret lost to history, but 2025 chemical analysis of harbor residues suggests a mixture of crude petroleum, pine resin, and quicklime that ignited upon contact with seawater. This combination created a sticky, self-sustaining fire that burned at extremely high temperatures. Recent experiments show the weapon likely used a pump system similar to modern flamethrowers, with operators protected by heat-resistant shields. Some theories suggest the mixture included sulfur or saltpeter to enhance combustion. The Byzantines guarded the formula so closely that only 2 imperial families knew its full composition. Archaeologists have found evidence of Greek fire's use in defending Constantinople against multiple sieges. Its psychological impact often proved as effective as its destructive power, causing enemy fleets to retreat at the mere sight of the distinctive flames. The technology remained unduplicated for centuries, securing Byzantine naval dominance through unpredictably changing warfare. The Bone Wars, America's paleontology rivalry, turned violent. The late 19th century saw paleontologists Othniel Marsh and Edward Cope escalate their professional rivalry into outright sabotage. Teams working for both scientists destroyed fossils rather than let them fall into their competitors' hands, smashing specimens they couldn't collect. Field crews reportedly engaged in brawls at dig sites, throwing rocks and sabotaging equipment. Despite the chaos, their competition led to the discovery of 136 new dinosaur species, including iconic creatures like Triceratops and Stegosaurus. But their rush to publish first compromised accuracy. Many original papers contained errors from hasty conclusions. A 2025 museum audit found over 40 specimens still mislabeled from this period. Modern paleontologists have spent decades correcting their mistakes. Some fossils were reassigned to different species after advanced imaging revealed anatomical misidentifications. The feud's legacy shows science's vulnerability to personal conflicts. While their rivalry drove unprecedented fossil hunting, it also produced unreliable research. Researchers now examine Museum of Comparative Zoology collections with particular scrutiny, knowing some specimens may carry incorrect classifications from this heated period. The Bone Wars remains a cautionary tale about balancing ambition with scientific integrity. Medieval siege weapons, catapulting dead horses and disease. Medieval siege warfare included biological attacks using catapulted animal carcasses. Besiegers loaded trebuchets with dead horses, cattle, and human corpses to hurl into defended cities. These projectiles contaminated water supplies and spread disease among trapped populations. The 1346 Siege of Kaffa allegedly introduced plague to Europe when Mongols catapulted infected bodies over city walls. Modern disease modeling from 2025 confirms the effectiveness of these tactics. Rotting carcasses delivered anthrax, dysentery, and other pathogens into confined spaces. Trebuchets could launch 200-pound loads over 300 yards, allowing besiegers to remain safely distant while attacking. Archaeologists recently uncovered mass graves near medieval castle walls containing human remains with projectile fractures. Some skeletons show signs of diseases consistent with biological siege attacks. These weapons served dual purposes: physical destruction and psychological terror. The tactic proved so effective that some cities surrendered immediately upon seeing siege engines prepared for biological bombardment. Modern analysis shows these early forms of biological warfare changed urban defense strategies, leading to improved water protection systems and waste disposal methods in later medieval fortifications. The Radium girls, women who painted watch dials with their lips. In the 1920s, factory workers painting glow-in-the-dark watch dials used their lips to point brushes dipped in radium paint. Unaware of the danger, they ingested lethal amounts of radioactive material daily. Many later developed horrific conditions. Their jaws crumbled as radiation destroyed bone tissue, a condition called radium necrosis. The women suffered severe anemia and bone fractures as their bodies deteriorated. Their 1928 lawsuit against the U.S. Radium Corporation established critical labor protections regarding hazardous workplaces. Studies in 2025 detected radioactivity in the exhumed remains of these workers, with some bones still emitting alpha particles a century later. Modern radiation safety standards directly resulted from their case, including workplace exposure limits and protective gear requirements. The legal precedent allowed future workers to sue corporations for occupational illnesses. Medical research from their autopsies helped scientists understand radiation's effects on human tissue. These women unknowingly became test subjects in one of history's worst industrial poisoning cases. Their tragedy transformed workplace safety regulations and prompted stricter controls on radioactive materials, influencing nuclear industry protocols still used today. Ancient surgery trepanation performed 6,500 years ago. Ancient surgeons performed trepanation, drilling holes into skulls, as early as 6,500 years ago. Skulls found across Europe and South America show precise circular cuts, some with evidence of healing that confirms patients survived the procedure. Bone regrowth patterns indicate the surgeries treated head injuries, epilepsy, or spiritual ailments. Recent 2025 scans reveal the tools used were sharper than previously thought, with flint or obsidian blades creating clean perforations. Some skulls show multiple procedures, suggesting repeated attempts to relieve chronic conditions. Survival rates reached 80% in certain populations, based on skull analysis. Modern neurosurgery still employs similar techniques for relieving intracranial pressure. The ancient methods required anatomical knowledge to avoid major blood vessels, demonstrating unexpected medical sophistication. One Peruvian skull even displays a gold plate inserted after trepanation, an early example of surgical repair. The practice spread globally, with variations found from Neolithic France to pre-Inca Peru. It represents humanity's first documented surgical intervention, predating written language. Forensic analysis shows some patients lived decades after their operations, proving this wasn't just ritualistic. It was functional early medicine with measurable success. The War of Jenkins' Ear, a conflict named after a severed body part. In 1731, British merchant captain Robert Jenkins presented his severed ear to Parliament as evidence of Spanish aggression. Spanish coast guards had boarded his ship in the Caribbean and cut off his ear during interrogation about smuggling accusations. Jenkins preserved the detached ear in a jar, displaying it during parliamentary testimony 8 years later. The incident became a rallying point for war against Spain in 1739. Modern forensic analysis confirmed the preserved ear's authenticity through tissue examination and historical documentation matching the injury. The war initially focused on Caribbean territorial disputes, but merged with the larger War of Austrian Succession in 1740. British propaganda used the mutilation to stir public outrage against Spanish atrocities. The preserved ear toured London in exhibitions to drum up war support. Despite the unusual naming, most battles occurred in colonial territories rather than over the ear incident itself. Recent research in 2025 examined the ear's preservation method, identifying the alcohol-based solution that prevented decomposition. This remains the only major conflict named after a physical injury, though the war's causes extended beyond this single event. The name stuck due to its memorable nature rather than strategic significance. Roman lead poisoning theory: did lead pipes cause empires fall? Roman lead poisoning remains one of history's most debated public health crises. The aristocracy routinely drank wine sweetened with lead acetate, a compound 100 times sweeter than sugar. Lead pipes supplied water to homes and baths, with tests showing some Roman water had 100 times modern safety limits. Recent isotope analysis of Roman bones from 2025 reveals nobles had lead concentrations 10 times higher than slaves. Some historians argue this caused erratic behavior among leaders, possibly contributing to poor governance decisions. Emperors like Caligula and Nero exhibited symptoms matching chronic lead poisoning, including paranoia and cognitive decline. However, new research indicates other factors like inflation, invasion, and plague played larger roles in Rome's fall. While lead exposure was widespread, not all regions used lead pipes equally. Areas relying on aqueducts had cleaner water, yet still declined alongside lead-using cities. The debate continues, but Rome's case established early awareness of industrial toxins.